Hey everyone, it's Marie here from Nicole Designs. I get to share with you the Hedgehog Hollow subscription box, and this is the box for February. I'm opening up the box here. There's a piece of candy. You also get a sheet of paper that's got a fun little note on there, and it's got your included items in your kit. So you can refer to that, make sure you have everything in your kit. And then I'm opening up the tissue paper here, and this box is full of stamps. And this first set here, I am so excited for my friend Jess. She hand lettered all of these letters, all of these words, and they are her first stamp set. I'm so excited for her. So congrats to her. And I love the words there that you can add them on to all of your cards. You also have this stamp set here that has a floral frame and another floral image, as well as a bunch of other sentiments and in there. Now this one has to be my favorite from the box. I love this floral heart. I'll be making a card with that today in my video. There's also this smaller little stamp set. It says catch up soon, and it's got some flowers in there. There's also a stencil, and I love that they included the negative and positive pieces here, so you get all of the pieces of this stencil, those little leaf images and things, so you can do some creative stenciling with that. You also get a number of envelopes. So if you like to make cards like me, you have envelopes included in there that you can put your card in and mail them off. You have a few A2 size cardstock pieces here. These would be great for layering pieces, different colors that kind of go with the theme of the box. And then you have a number of sheets of white cardstock. I'm not quite sure what kind of cardstock this is, but it feels like a pretty heavy weight, and it feels pretty smooth. So it seems like a good quality cardstock. I'm not quite sure of the brand. Now I'm going to get into my card here. I just showed you there I'm using some of my Bristol Smooth cardstock, and that's because I'm going to be doing zigs. And ever since I started using my Bristol with my zigs, I refuse to use any other kind of cardstock with my zigs because it's just the cardstock that gives me the best results. So if you have zig brush markers and you find that they haven't been working very well for you, I'd really recommend trying the Bristol Smooth cardstock because it is the best by far that I've used with these markers. So I'm stamping out this heart image like I showed you in the beginning. This one's probably my favorite image of the box, and it's got this kind of vintage rose arrangement on there with all of these vintagey type leaves. So I'm going to color this in more of a vintage color palette. So that's why I chose the brown instead of a black or another color to stamp this out with, and I'm using my zigs to color. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of color in the areas where my petals, my flower would be the darkest, and since these are watercolor markers, I'm going to go ahead after I add my color and then use a water brush to spread this color out. You don't need a whole lot of water, and honestly you don't need a whole lot of pigment. These zigs are very pigmented and they move really well on this Bristol, so if you put a little bit of color down and spread it out, you're going to get great results. And it's always easier to go back in and add more color. It's a little bit harder to take that color away, so if you want more intense color, just slowly build up those layers, go back and add more color. And so that's how I like to color. I like to go light at first and add in more color as I go. So I'm using a lighter pink here. I'm just blending it out with a little bit of water from my water brush. I'm not even squeezing on my water brush at all. As long as you have your bristles wet, it's going to help move that color around. So I've got my first layer on all my roses here. I'm coming in with a darker pink, and I'm just layering on some more pink in the areas that it would be darkest. So I like to go ahead and color a lot of my images in sets. So I went ahead and colored all of these roses with my lightest color. Now I'm coming in with my darkest color. And the way I like to do that is because you get your first layer on all of the roses, and then by the time you get back to your first rose, if you didn't use a lot of water, it's going to be dry enough to start layering on your next color. So it gives time for each of those images to dry before you get back to it with So after I put on my darker pink, I'm coming in with my darkest shade here, which is actually a brown. Now I chose a reddish brown, a pinkish brown, and I'm putting this just a little bit on the areas where my darkest shadows would be. And you really don't need a lot at all. These darker colors have a lot of pigment in them, so once you start spreading them out, they're really going to spread quite a bit. So just put a tiny bit on those lines that your darkest shadow is going to be, and then you can go ahead with your water brush and spread it around a little bit if you want. I did go back in and kind of move this color around, but you can see even here before I've moved my color around, it doesn't even look too bad if you don't blend with a water brush. So these zigs, you can get them to blend together without any water if you like that look as well. But blending it out does give it a little bit more of a softer look, gives it a little bit more of a shadowy look. And I'm using the browns, again, like I mentioned before, because I wanted more of a vintage feel with the color palette. So the brown that I'm using is almost as dark as the brown that I used to stamp out this image. So in a way, it almost gives it maybe a no line type of feel, or maybe not quite a bold line that you would get if you used black. So I really like that sort of muted vintage look to the whole image after it's colored. So I'm coming back in here, I'm doing all of the leaves. I'm using more of an olive green, not quite as much of a brighter green. This green has a little bit more brown in it, and that just goes along with the vintage brown look for my whole image. Now when I'm doing more of a muted palette like I'm doing here, I like to use browns for my shading. So I did go ahead and put green on all of my leaves, and then to kind of give it a little bit more depth and shading, I came back with a brown as well. And I tried to pick a brown that kind of had more of a green tint to it, or so I thought just by looking at my marker. And that way I can get, you know, the colors to kind of blend together a little bit more. So here are the images all colored out. I used my brown for my shading, got everything colored. I'm going to go ahead and cut my leaves and my heart. So after I took the time to go ahead and fussy cut all of these little pieces, I needed to figure out how to arrange them on a card to create my card. So I have my two little leaves here that are separate from that heart. I kind of want to arrange them on the sides, having them pop out from the sides of the heart. And my background here is going to be embossed with this embossing folder that gives sort of a wood grain texture, which I absolutely love. I think it goes really well with this vintagey feel flower. I'm going to layer the flower on top of that. Before I do that though, I'm going to take this scalloped edge die and I'm just going to die cut the bottom at an angle. And I thought a little bit of that scalloped edge would kind of make it look like lace or something that you would see along with vintage flowers. So I'm trying to go along with that whole vintage theme here by giving it a little bit of a lacy scalloped edge. I'm going to go ahead and put this on top of a piece of cardstock that's kind of a burgundy or a wine kind of color. But before I do that, I want to stamp some more flowers on the bottom of that cardstock so that the piece that is peeking out under that scalloped panel will have some of these flowers. Now I'm using the same brown that I used on my heart because I don't want it to be black, since I'm using brown as sort of my base color. And it's going to be a dark stamped pattern. So it's not going to be in your face, it's going to be more subtle, but it'll be there, and it adds a little bit more pattern, a little bit more design to my card. So I'm popping my wood grain panel up on foam adhesive. I'm going to layer my heart on as well using foam adhesive. So I'm going to have a lot of dimension on this card, and I really love dimension on my cards, so I use foam adhesive a lot. I'm just peeling off these backing pieces, and I'm going to layer it on top of my wood grain panel. And once I have my heart on there, I'm also going to layer on my leaves, but I'm going to stick them underneath my sentiment. And now I went really easy with my sentiment. I took one of those words from Jess's stamp set. I took the word mom and embossed it with gold embossing powder. And then I just fussy cut it out. So you'll see that here in just a second. And then I put some foam adhesive on the back. So I'm going to go pop this up on foam as well. So I actually have 3 layers of foam going on here. And if you find that to be a little bit too bulky for your envelopes, I sometimes go up to a 5x7 envelope, like a size up from your A2 size card envelopes. That gives it a little bit more room. And I really like some really sturdy craft envelopes for mailing my cards. It's just more sturdy, gives them more room. And I've never really had a problem with a card being torn to pieces in the post office service is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm popping this sentiment up here, adding some glue, adding my leaves behind my sentiment, and that's pretty much the card, except for I am going to go add some sequins on here as well. I've been really into the clear sequins lately. I think just adding a few of them here and there on your card just gives it a little bit more shine. It makes it kind of wow a little bit more, if that's the right word. So I'm using a little bit of glue. I'm using my Studio Katia embellishment wand, which I have been loving lately. Great for embellishments like sequins and little things, little pieces that you're trying to piece in together. It's got that wax tip that will pick up light items like your sequins, and you can just put it into place. It'll stick on that glue as soon as it touches it, so it makes it really easy to put all of your little embellishments right where you want them. So that's it for today's card. I hope you enjoyed a look at the Hedgehog Hollow subscription box and how to use these stamps together to make a fun card for your mom or any other lady in your life that's just really special and needs a floral heart. So thanks for stopping by. If you haven't already, please subscribe, comment, like, share, do all the things, and I'll catch you guys next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.